Hello friends, hope your preparation is going great. We have 90 more days, so in which we can do wonders. So what is required is consistent preparation, everyday preparation. Definitely we can clear this exam. Let us not waste any time. Let us go into the test 14 discussion. Test 14 will be having questions from economics, science, polity, and as usual we will be having some current affairs questions. So I will be discussing on economics as well as some current affairs questions, right. So we will start with economics. So first question, this is regarding e-way bill. So e-way bill is applicable for both interstate as well as intrastate movement of goods. That is a correct statement. So what is this e-way bill? This e-way bill was introduced for removing the tax evasion made in the goods and service taxes. So we all know that every month there is a target of collecting close to 1 lakh crores from GST. Only then we will be ensuring revenue neutrality. So to ensure revenue neutrality, we have to collect almost 1 lakh crores of GST revenue every month. But there is a fall in the amount being collected every month. So that may be a result of tax evasion, for which we came with something called as e-way bill, electronic way bill. So whenever we purchase a good which is worth more than 50,000 rupees, it is worth more than 50,000 rupees, and when we take that good, let us say for example during the movement of those goods which is worth more than 50,000 rupees, it is mandatory for us to carry a electronic way bill, right, for both interstate as well as intrastate movement of goods. So statement 1 is correct. Statement 2, of course it is mandatory for movement of goods of consignment value exceeding not rupees 15,000 but it is 50,000 rupees. So second option is, second statement is wrong, first statement is correct. So answer is A, 1 only. Right. Question number 2. So goods and service taxes means any tax on supply of goods. Yes, GST is defined as supply taxes on supply of goods or services, goods or services or both, excluding the supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. That is how GST has been defined. Statement 1 is correct. As per 101st Constitutional Amendment Act, state also includes union territory with legislature in cases of GST Council. That is a correct statement. In GST Council, it is headed by Finance Minister, right, and Minister of State will also be Minister of State holding the Revenue Department will also be a member of this GST Council, followed by that Finance Ministers from 29 states plus 2 union territories. So having legislative assemblies, that is Union Pondicherry as well as Delhi. So those finance ministers will also be representing the GST Council, right. So the state also includes UT with legislature in case of GST Council is a correct statement. So both the statements are correct. So answer is going to be C, both 1 and 2. Right. Question number 3. So consider the following statements with respect to GST Council. Just now I was explaining about GST Council. It is headed by Finance Minister. So Union Finance Minister is the chairperson of the council. That is a correct statement. So Minister of State Finance will be the vice chairperson. Will be the vice chairperson. See, the vice chairperson post will be going to one of the minister, finance minister coming under the states category, right. So one of the 29 finance ministers will be given this vice chairperson position. So statement 2 is wrong. Quorum to conduct. Quorum means the minimum attendance required to conduct the meeting. That is not 10%, that is going to be 50%. At least 50% of the house has to be present to conduct a GST Council meet. The question is about not correct statements. 2 and 3 is not correct. So answer is B, 2 and 3 only. So next question. Fourth question. So this is again regarding GST Council. So in GST Council, every decision is taken through a majority voting. So what majority? We need to have 3/4 majority to take any decision in this council. So here the statement says that the majority should be not less than 1/2. No, the majority should be not less than 3/4 of the weighted votes of the members present and voting. Right? Statement 1 is wrong. the weightage, the voting weightage given to central government, the voting weightage given to central government is 1/3 and the voting weightage given to the state government is 2/3. That means the members are not given equal voting weightage. The central government members are given 1/3 of the voting weightage. The state government members are getting 2/3 of the voting weightage. So, this is given in such a way that unilaterally either the central government or the state government will not be in a position to take a decision, right. So, they need the cooperation of both the governments, central governments and state governments. Cooperation is becoming very crucial to take a decision in the GST Council. That is why we say GST Council is a perfect example for cooperative federalism. So, the vote of central government shall have a weightage of 1/3. That is a correct statement. So, statement 1 is wrong, statement 2 is correct. Question is about correct statement. So, the answer is B, 2 only. So, question number 5, GDP includes goods which are meant for exports. So, what is GDP? Gross domestic product, the number of goods, the total value of goods produced within the boundaries of the country. The goods which are meant for exports are also produced within the boundaries of the country. So, that definitely includes the exports, but it will not include the goods which we import, because those are goods which are manufactured or produced somewhere outside the country. So, the goods meant for exports are also goods produced within the country. So, that is also included in the exports. There is a steady increase in the GDP of India since 1991. That is a true statement. So, post liberalization, our growth rate remained positive. Our growth rate was fluctuating. One year it will be growing at 8%, another year it might be growing at 5%, but since post liberalization our growth rate remained positive. When you have a positive growth rate, then the GDP number is going to be positive, it is going to increase steadily, right. So, there is a steady increase in GDP since 1991, that is a true statement, but remember there is a fluctuation in the growth rate, but the GDP as a number, it is increasing steadily. So, answer is going to be C, both 1 and 2. MCA 21, Ministry of Corporate Affairs 21st Century, that is called as MCA 21, is a major initiative taken by the Government of India in which are the following areas. So, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they were coming up with a portal to facilitate the exchange of information between the companies as well as the government. So, it is a e-governance measure which was introduced in the year 2006, and remember this MCA 21 is the source, is one of the important source for calculating the GDP, right. So, the source for calculating the GDP was changed since 2014-15. So, before that the source was Annual Survey of Industries, and now the source is MCA 21, right. So, question number 7. So, consider the following statements with respect to GDP and GVA. So, what is GVA? So, what is GVA? GVA is equal to, so GV or GVA calculated at factor cost plus it is going to have the production taxes and it is going to exclude the production subsidies. So, this GVA, particularly at basic prices, this GVA, it gives the overall picture or overall perspective from the factory point, from the supply perspective. So, statement 1 is correct. If we take GDP, in GDP along with this GVA at the basic prices, I will be adding the product taxes and product, I will be removing the product subsidies, right. So, along with this I will be adding product taxes and I will be subtracting the product subsidies, right. So, this is going to give the picture from the consumer point of view, from the consumer perspective. So, consumer is going to create the demand. So, it is going to be from demand perspective. So, GVA gives a picture of the state of the economy activity from supply perspective, that is a correct statement. From factory perspective, supply perspective, GDP is going to give you a perspective from demand side, from the consumer side. So both these statements are correct. So answer is going to be C, both 1 and 2. So question number 8. PPI measures the average change in the price of goods and services as they leave the place of production. Remember, Producers Price Index PPI is a tool used to measure the price rise of goods. Like how we have CPI, like how we have WPI, there is a tool called as Producers Price Index, which we are not using it officially. We are using CPI and WPI to measure the inflation, right? But PPI is also one tool which measures the price rise, price change in the goods or services within the factory, in the place of production. The CPI or WPI is measured when the product comes to the market, but PPI is measured when the product is ready for hitting the market, the moment it leaves the factory. At that point, as they leave the place of production, at that point, the moment when it leaves the factory, what is the price change, right? Let us say I am producing a pen in the factory, right? It is 10 rupees today. Tomorrow or next year I am producing the same pen in the factory. It is going to be 12 rupees. So inside the factory, what is the price change happened? That will be measured using something called as Producers Price Index. So statement 1 is correct. PPI measures the average change in prices excluding the indirect taxes. Of course, definitely yes. Once it comes to the market, there is going to be the influence of taxes. Within the factory, the influence of indirect taxes will not be there. So it is going to exclude the indirect taxes. So both these statements are correct. So answer is C, both 1 and 2. Right. So this 9th question is regarding capital goods. So we all know capital goods are final goods. Capital goods or final goods which are used to produce some other goods. So capital goods are final goods which are used to produce some other goods, right? So engine used in a car. So engine used in a car is an example for intermediate good. That engine is not used to manufacture a car. Engine is a part of the car. Engine separately, it is not used to manufacture the car, right? So engine used in a car, that is an example for intermediate good that comes along with the car. Let us say there is a robotic arm which is used in the car manufacturing companies. That robotic arm is an example for capital goods. That robotic arm plays a crucial role in assembling the parts of the cars. But this engine that comes along with the car, so it is an example for intermediate goods. So 1 will not come. So automatically option is going to be 2 and 3. So computer used in an IT company, that computer is used to produce certain services, certain application software. So that is an example for capital good. Tractor used by farmer is going to be again a capital good, right? That is going to help in producing crops. So answer is going to be B, 2 and 3, right? Answer is going to be B, 2 and 3 only. Right. So next question is regarding GDP deflator. We all know it is a ratio between nominal GDP and real GDP. That is also a tool, one of the tools to measure the inflation. That takes into account of both goods and services. Of course, no restrictions that takes into account of both goods and services. GDP deflator does not include the price of exported and imported goods. It does not include the price of imported goods. That is correct. But it also takes into account of the price of the goods which are meant for exports. In the previous questions I discussed, exports are also the goods which are meant for exports are also produced within the country. That is a part of GDP. That is a part of GDP deflator also. It will not take into account of imported goods. But if you take the CPI or WPI, that will take into account of imported goods as well, right? So statement 2 is wrong. Statement 1 is correct. So answer is going to be A, 1 only. So which among the given situations might lead to fiscal slippage? So what is fiscal slippage? When your actual fiscal deficit, if it is greater than the expected fiscal deficit, when it is greater than the expected fiscal deficit, then that situation we call it as fiscal slippage. So basically when the fiscal deficit is high, you get a fiscal slippage like situation. So which among the given situations might lead to fiscal deficit. So, when you will have deficit, when there is a fall in revenue or when there is an increase in expenditure, you will be getting fiscal deficit, fiscal slippage situation. When there is GST rate cuts, revenue will fall. When there is increase in revenue receipt, revenue is going to increase. So, that cannot be a situation which leads to fiscal slippage. So, rationalizing subsidies will reduce the expenditures, that also cannot cause the fiscal slippage. 2 and 3 will not be the correct option. So, answer is going to be 1 only. So, answer is A, 1 only. Right. So, question number 12. So, this is regarding capital receipts. Right. So, what is a capital receipt? Any receipt if it results in creation of liability, it should create a liability or it should reduce your assets, either it should create liability or it should reduce the assets. Or if you are able to establish a two-way transaction, then automatically we can put that particular receipt under capital receipt component, right. So, first one, recovery of loans. So, you have given loans and that loans you are recovering. So, definitely there is a two-way transaction, that is a part of capital receipt. Interest and profits, those come under revenue component, it will not come under capital component. Interest payment, interest receipts, interest which you receive, that is a one-way transaction. Profits made by PSU is a one-way transaction. So, those will come under revenue component. 2 and 3 will not come under the capital receipt, right. So, recovery of loans is the only correct option given. So, answer is going to be A, 1 only. Right. Question number 13. This is regarding the effect of GST. So, improvement and ease of doing business, see, one nation, one taxation, right. So, earlier business firms were finding it difficult to accustom to the taxation rules in different states. Now, throughout the country there is going to be one indirect taxation. So, that is going to increase the ease of doing business, increase in organized trade, to get the input tax credit you have to be a part of this GST, right. So, that is increasing the organized trade, right. Reduce logistical cost. This GST is subsuming the octroi and entry tax, which was creating large amount of traffic in the state borders because they were taxing the movement of goods. Now, there is no such taxation. So, that is going to reduce logistic cost. So, all these statements are correct. So, answer is going to be D, 1, 2 and 3. 14th question. Which among the below is an indicator to measure the efficiency of responsiveness and of revenue mobilization in response to growth of GDP? So, change in tax revenue with respect to change in GDP, that is called as tax buoyancy. Change in tax revenue with respect to change in GDP, that is called as tax buoyancy. That is what we have asked here. So, answer is going to be C. So, question number 15. Which among the following measures can be taken to reduce the revenue deficit? So, what is revenue deficit? RD is equal to revenue expenditure minus revenue receipt. So, how to reduce the revenue deficit? Either you decrease your expenditure or you increase your revenue, right. Either you decrease your expenditure. Which expenditure? Either reduce your revenue expenditure or increase your revenue receipt to reduce the revenue deficit. Reducing subsidies, of course. Here my revenue expenditure is decreasing, that is a measure to reduce the deficit. Increasing disinvestment proceeds, the sale of shares that results in disinvestment proceeds, that sale of shares is nothing but reduction in asset. This is an example for capital receipt. So, the question is regarding reducing revenue deficit. So, a capital receipt cannot reduce the revenue deficit. Increase in market borrowing is also an example for a debt creating capital receipt. Definitely a capital receipt cannot reduce the revenue deficit. So, these two cannot be correct, only one is correct. So, answer is going to be B, 1 only. 16th question. This is a UPSC question, 2018 UPSC question. So, FRBM review committee headed by N.K. Singh has recommended to reduce debt to GDP ratio of 60% for the general government by 2023, comprising of 40% from central government and 20% from state government. So, encasing committee says that the overall debt to GDP ratio has to be brought down to 60%, right. So, the debt of 40% of central government as well as 20% should be brought down 20% of state government is one of his recommendations. One is correct. The central government has domestic liabilities of 21% of GDP as compared to the 14% of GDP of state government. That is wrong. So, state governments are having 21% of debt, and that has to be reduced to 20% is what encasing says, and the central government is having a debt of 49% and that has to be reduced to 40%, that is what encasing committee says. So, put together we have to reduce the debt by 60%, right. Statement 2 is wrong, statement 1 is correct. As per the Constitution of India, it is mandatory for a state to take the central government's consent for raising any loan if the former owes any outstanding liabilities to the later. That is a correct statement. So, 1 and 3 is correct. So, answer is going to be C, 1 and 3 only. Right. 17th question, this is regarding if one looks at the duty structure, the basic customs duty on tires is 10% as against the natural rubber, which is 25%. There is a classic example for inverted duty structure. So, what inverted duty structure says? If your tax on raw material, right, which you are importing, if your tax on raw material which you are importing, if that tax is greater, than the final product which you import, that tax is greater than the final product which you import, that is an example for inverted duty structure. Say just imagine the tax on natural rubber here is given as 25%, it is a raw material, right. The tax on tire, the final good, is 10%. So, in this situation I call that duty structure as inverted duty structure. So, what is the implication? Just imagine a situation. So, I involved in manufacturing tires in India, I import the rubber, right, by paying a large amount of tax, and I add value and I will be selling that in the market. So, that huge amount of tax is also going to add in the value of the tire. So, my tire becomes costlier, right. Rather, I directly import the tire from the foreign market. Since the tax rate is less, then the imported good will appear more cheaper. So, generally people will prefer the imported final product rather than the value added product made in India. So, this is going to discourage the value additions generally made inside the country, right. So, this is an example when your taxes duty on the raw material, if it is greater than the tax on the final goods which you import, that situation is called as inverted duty structure. Right. If real GDP is greater than nominal GDP, what does it indicate? So, what is real GDP? So, real GDP, it is a GDP calculated based on the price which was prevailing in the base year, that we say it as constant prices, right. Nominal GDP. So, what is nominal GDP? If I calculate what is nominal GDP, if I calculate the GDP based on the prevailing prices, current prices, then that is called as nominal GDP. If real GDP is greater than nominal GDP, if real GDP is greater than nominal GDP, that means the constant price is greater than the current price. So, answer is going to be B. The price of goods and services in the constant year is greater than the prices in the current year. Answer is going to be B. Question number 19. So, consider the following statements with respect to input tax credit. Input tax credit. It is a refund given by the government to the end consumer. It is not a refund given to the end consumer, rather it is a refund given to the business firm in the supply chain, and it is expected that that business firm will be passing on the benefit to the consumer. So, statement 1 is wrong. Input tax credit offsets the tax paid for the inputs from the tax payable on the final output produced. Of course, yes, that is why we call it as input tax credit. So, a business firm is paying tax for a product, let us say a business firm A, he is purchasing a product for which he is paying a tax, and he is selling this product for which tax is being paid. For the same product, there is two taxation. So, in this case, the government is going to refund the tax which he paid during the input stage. That is why it is called as input tax credit. So, that tax credit offsets the tax paid for the inputs from the tax payable on the final output product. So, statement 2 is correct, statement 1 is wrong, so answer is going to be B 2 only. 20th question is regarding Gini coefficient. Gini coefficient. So, Gini coefficient uses Lorentz curve. We all know that Gini coefficient, it uses the Lorentz curve for measuring the inequality, right. So, Gini coefficient is measured between 0 to 1, right. As you go closer to 1, it means maximum inequality. If the score is closer to 0, it means a perfect equality situation. So, a general rise in Gini coefficient which indicates not the decrease, which indicates increase in the inequality between rich and poor. The Gini coefficient score is closer to 1, then that indicates there is an increase in inequality, right. So, second one, progressive taxation can be a tool to increase Gini coefficient. Basically, Gini coefficient measures the inequality. To reduce the inequality, we have to go for progressive taxation. We all know progressive taxation means taxing the rich more as they earn more, right. So, this is a tool not to increase, rather it is a tool to decrease the Gini coefficient, right. So, answer is regarding incorrect statements. Both the statements are incorrect, right. 21st question, this is regarding capital gains tax. Capital gains tax arise when there is an increase in the sale of the product. So, capital gains tax arises when you make some gain while selling a product. Let us say I purchase a product for 10 rupees, right, and I sell that product for 100 rupees, right. So, I have made a gain of 90 rupees. So, on that there is going to be a tax. See, imagine you are purchasing a land for 10 lakhs and you are selling it for 100 lakhs, then 90 lakhs is the gain which you have made. So, that on that gain we are going to tax, what is called as capital gains tax. So, that is not going to result out of increase in the sale. Increase in the sale will not result in capital gains tax, rather there must be a gain in selling that one single product, that will be called as capital gains tax, right. Capital gains tax is an indirect tax. No, it is a direct tax. Both the statements are wrong. So, answer is going to be D, neither 1 nor 2. Right. 22nd question. So, which one of the following statements appropriately describes the fiscal stimulus? Fiscal stimulus, it is an affirmative action made by the government to boost the economy as a whole, not particularly to a sector, to boost the economy activity as a whole in the country. So, here answer is going to be B. It is an intense affirmative action of government to boost the economic activity in the country as a whole. 23rd question. So, this is regarding composition scheme under GST. Composition scheme under GST. This scheme is given for small and medium enterprises. Small and medium enterprises, they can avail this composition scheme. So, enterprises availing this scheme, they need not pay the GST tax. It is on a monthly basis. They can go for a quarterly filing, right. And remember, these entities who are opting for a composition scheme, they will not be receiving any input tax credit. And while raising the invoice on behalf of the consumer, they have to pay the tax, and they cannot involve in the interstate trade as well, right. We will look into the options. Tax scheme available for small and medium enterprises, that is a correct statement, but here we have mentioned as all. So, composition scheme is available only for entities who are involved in producing goods and not services. One exception is given for services. So, apart from restaurant services, no other services is eligible for applying for composition scheme. So, it is not available for all small and medium enterprises. That is a wrong statement, right. Input tax credit is available for those who opt for composition scheme. So, input tax credit is not available, that is a correct statement. A taxpayer under the composition scheme under GST will be required to file summary statements only on a quarterly basis. That is a true statement. A firm under composition scheme can't engage in interstate trade. So, all the 3 statements are correct. 1 is wrong. So, answer is going to be C, 2, 3 and 4. 24th question. Which among the following statements is true with respect to cross subsidy? So, what is cross subsidy? I am charging one commodity more for keeping the price of other commodity low. I am putting more tax on petrol to keep the kerosene price cheaper. This is called as cross subsidy. So, it is subsidizing one segment at the cost of another segment, that is called as cross subsidy, right. 25th question. So, this is regarding tools used by RBI to control inflation, right. To control inflation, what are the tools RBI can use? So, to control inflation, we have to control the money supply, we have to reduce the money supply. To reduce the money supply, we have to increase the interest rates. By increasing the repo rate, what will happen? By increasing the repo rate, the banks the banks are having 2 choices. They can lend to RBI or they can lend to public. Now, RBI says through the repo rate, RBI says, I'm just sorry, I was explaining about reverse repo. Let us take repo again. So, what is the difference between repo and reverse repo? So, repo rate, that talks about the rate at which the commercial banks borrow from RBI. When RBI increases the repo rate, then the commercial banks they have to borrow at a higher interest and they will be lending at a higher interest to the public. So, automatically when interest rate is higher, the borrowings will fall, the money supply will fall. That is a tool for containing inflation. So, first one is correct. Decrease in reverse repo rate. So, banks can lend either to RBI or they can lend to public. Reverse repo is the rate at which RBI borrows from the banks. If RBI says that I will be borrowing for a very low interest, the banks will not be interested giving loan to RBI. So, they will be sending all the money to market. So, there will be more money in the market. So, money supply will not decrease. So, that might lead to inflation situation. So, 2 cannot be a right option. Increasing cash reserve ratios, increasing CRR. So, CRR, what is CRR? So, bank, they have to maintain some of their amount deposits locked with the RBI. If CRR is made 100, what will happen? Then all the amount which bank is having, that will be locked with the RBI. So, bank cannot lend. If bank cannot lend, the money supply will not increase. So, increasing the CRR will effectively decrease the money supply in the market. So, that can be a tool to control the inflation, right. What about decreasing import duties? When there is inflation, inflation means there is a price rise. That inflation is because of increase in demand. So, when there is more demand, to meet the demand, we need more products. So, for which we will go for importing the goods. So, generally government will slash the import duties so that we can import the products to make sure that there is adequate product to meet the demand. But remember, the question is about tools used by RBI. So, decreasing import duties, it is not a monetary policy, it is a fiscal policy which RBI cannot engage with. So, answer is going to be D, 1 and 3, right. So, next question, 26th question. So, from now we will be entering into the current affairs section. So, first 25 questions were economics. So, now I am going into the current affairs questions. So, this is with reference to Jan Shikshan Sanstans. So, this is an institution which is set up to provide skill development, vocational training for the school dropouts. So, statement 1 is correct, right. This project will be implemented in a mission mode through the Ministry of Labour and Employment in left-wing extremism affected areas. So, it is partly correct, it is not Ministry of Labour and Employment, it was with the Ministry of Human and Resource Development and now it is currently with the Ministry of Skill Development. Statement 2 is wrong, so answer is A, 1 only. 27th question is regarding the Citizenship Amendment Bill. The bill seeks to allow illegal migrants belonging to certain minds from all neighbouring countries is wrong. It is only Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh. So, all is wrong, statement 1 is wrong. The bill seeks to relax minimum years of residency from 11 years, 6 years. That is the correct statement. So, statement 2 is correct, statement 1 is wrong. So, answer is going to be B2 only. Right. So, Pravesi Bharatiya Divas. So, it is celebrated to strengthen the engagement of the overseas Indian community with the government of India. That is a true statement, but not every year, rather once in 2 years. Statement 1 is wrong. January 26th was chosen. No, it is January 9th, the date 1915, in which our Mahatma Gandhi, he entered India from South Africa. To commemorate that particular day, we are celebrating this particular event. So, both the statements are wrong. Answer is going to be D, neither 1 nor 2. 29th question. So, India has an open door policy. That means with the countries where they are having open door policy, visas are not required for us to go to those countries. If we are having not with all SAARC nations, we are having only with Bhutan and Nepal. So, 1 is wrong. All Indians can use Aadhaar as a valid identity proof instead of passport while traveling to Nepal. That is a wrong statement. Recently, the government announced that. So, people below 15 and people above 65, they can use Aadhaar. Apart from others, they can use some valid photo ID. A passport is also not required. A valid photo ID is sufficient to move to the Nepal or Bhutan. So, here both the statements are wrong. Answer is going to be neither 1 nor 2. 30th question, exercise Sea Vigil. So, this is a maritime exercise between, it is an exercise between Navy and Coastal Guard. Navy and Coastal Guard. So, this is to validate the efficacy of measures taken since the 26/11 attack, right? Nothing else. So, here both these statements are wrong. So, answer is going to be D, neither 1 nor 2. 31st question, this is regarding Champions of the Earth Award. Our Prime Minister recently received this Champions of the Earth Award, right, along with the France President. So, it is the highest honor given in the field of environment, non-social service. Statement 1 is wrong. It award recognizes outstanding figures from public, private as well as civil society. It is a true statement. Answer is going to be B2 only. 32nd question regarding Manrega scheme. So, it is a demand driven scheme making it obligatory for the state to give the beneficiaries remunerative work on demand. That is a correct statement. So, Jan Manrega is a citizen centric app that connects citizen with the system for greater transparency. That is a true statement. So, it is an interface to improve the public services. Statement 2 is correct. Manrega is implemented by Ministry of Social Justice Empowerment. Is a wrong statement. It is implemented by Ministry of Rural Development. 1 and 2 is correct. So, answer is going to be A, 1 and 2 only. Right. 33rd question, India ranks 108th in the recently released Global Gender Gap Report, which is released by World Economic Forum. It is released by World Economic Forum. 34th question, this is regarding virtual ID. So, it is a temporary 16-digit random number mapped to the Aadhaar number. So, if you do not want to disclose your Aadhaar number, you can generate a virtual ID, right, and that ID can be given for validating the ID, right. So, is it possible to derive Aadhaar from that VID? Definitely it is not possible. So, that from that 16-digit number we cannot derive the 12-digit number and all. So, let us say if someone is asking for maybe asking Aadhaar number, right, for some particular reason, temporarily we can generate this virtual ID for 16-digit random number, and that random number will be valid till the time a new VID is generated. Let us say next time I am going to generate a new Aadhaar ID number, then till that time this virtual ID will remain with me. After that a new virtual ID will be created. So, second is wrong, 1 and 3 is correct. Answer is going to be B, 1 and 3 only. Sat-At. So, what is Sat-At? Sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. Sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation. It is an initiative recently seen with respect to promotion of compressed biogas production. Government is going to spend 70 plus thousand crores for laying city pipe, gas pipe networks. The government is encouraging the entrepreneurs to come up and setting up the biogas refineries, which can be used for domestic use as well as for as a fuel also. So, such as an initiative to promote the compressed biogas production. Answer is D. 36th question. So, National Clean Air Program. So, this is a pollution control initiative launched by the Ministry of Environment. So, launched by the Ministry of Environment to cut the concentration of the particulate matter 10 and particulate matter 2.5, right. So, it is a national framework for air quality management, that is a correct statement. CPCB is implementing, that is also a correct statement. Answer is going to be C, both 1 and 2. 37th question. So, Zearalenone, a fungal toxin, can be found in which of the following? It can be found in all. So, all the crops are vulnerable to this fungal attack. So, during the cropping stage also we can face this attack, and also when the crops are not dried fully, we can also see this fungal attack, right. So, answer is C, 1, 2 and 3. 38th question. 38th question. So, here we all know that Osiris Rex is Bennu asteroid, Change 4 is far side of the moon, and NASA test is again about exoplanets. So, answer is going to be D, 1, 2 and 3. 39th question. With respect to tax inspectors without borders program, I remember in 16 there was a question on doctors without borders program. There is something called as press reporters without borders program, right. So, this is regarding tax inspectors without borders program, which facilitates the transfer of tax audit knowledge and skills to the tax administrators of developing countries using a practical learning by doing approach. That is a correct statement. It enables tax authorities around the world to work together to prosecute tax law violations by the transnational. That is a wrong statement. They do not have that much powers. It is a joint initiative of OECD and UNDP. So, statement 3 is wrong, 2 is wrong, answer is B, 1 only. 40th question. Which of the following pairs are correctly matched, right. So, we all know Kuril Island is not China and Russia, it is Japan and Russia. So, 2 is wrong. Parcel Island, that is with respect to China, Vietnam and Taiwan. So, obviously we can say answer is going to be C, 1 and 3 only, right. The next 5 questions that is going to be coming under the international organizations and national park category, right. So, which are mostly self-explanatory, we will also do that. So, UNCTAD is a permanent intergovernmental body established by the UN Assembly, that is a correct statement. It formulates policy relating to all aspects of development including trade, aid, transport, finance, technology, that is again a correct statement. The answer is going to be C, both 1 and 2. 42nd question. With respect to International Solar Alliance, so countries lying fully or partially between the tropics can be members of Solar Alliance, that is the correct statement. IAC is a treaty based on intergovernmental international organization. It does not put any legal obligation, that is also a correct statement. It is mostly a voluntary, based on a cooperative matter. On a voluntary basis they try to come up with some solutions, and you also have you don't have the concept of right to vote, and also statement 3 is wrong, 1 and 2 is correct. So, answer is going to be C, 1 and 2 only. 43rd question. This is regarding International Seabed Authority. So, Seabed Authority that regulates and controls only minerals and not non-minerals. So, statement 1 is wrong. So, automatically answer is going to be B, 2 and 3. It is established under UN clause, that is correct. India is a member of Seabed Authority, that is also a correct statement. 44th question. So, this bioreserve is spread across the states of Chhattisgarh and Odisha only. No, it is also present. Amarkantak Bioreserve is also present in Madhya Pradesh, parts of Madhya Pradesh. So one is wrong. Sanctuary is home to both Bengal and Indian leopard, Bengal tiger and Indian leopard. That's a correct statement. So answer is going to be B2 only. Right. 45th question. The Biosphere Reserve has largest zone of salt in all of India. Its cultural significance is characterized by stories of paintings of date back Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas. We can easily say they are talking, this above description is regarding Kanha National Park. It is regarding Kanha National Park, right. So with this I have discussed economic questions, current affairs questions and IR and National Park questions, right. So in the next part of video, you will be having the polity discussion. The science questions are largely self-explanatory. The polity questions will be discussed by Rangarajan sir in the second part of the test 14 discussion video, right. I hope the video was useful. We will see in another video. Thank you.
Hi friends, welcome back once again. It's been quite a while since we had this test discussion, but I'm sure you are because polity is coming as part of the syllabus after some time, but I'm sure you're all giving it your best effort. You are preparing very seriously and sincerely now. There are no classes for most of you except for the weekend batch these days, except for CSAT classes. So please ensure that all your time is devoted for preparation. Let there be no distractions, let there be no whiling away of time on smartphones, and there is enough aspects in the present day world to get distracted very easily. So please avoid all the distractions and concentrate fully on your examination. So we have already discussed most of these areas as part of the previous test discussions, but still as a practice, we will quickly go through the 30 questions of polity. Mr. Guna would have done the video for economy and current affairs. So I will only explain those areas where we have not discussed earlier in a bit of detail, but the rest of the things we will just run through the answers, right. So let's start. First question, Government of India Act 1919 is the genesis of unitary and centralized form of government. The Butler Commission visualized a federal form of government. Which of the above statements are correct? We have done historical underpinnings of the constitution so many times in the class and also in the previous test discussion. The first statement is obviously wrong because it was from 1919 that the provinces, it was the diarchy which was introduced in the provinces in 1919. So actually more powers were given to the provinces. Of course, it was delegated, it was not a federal structure, but it did not result in a unitary form of government. It was actually more the other way around. It started the genesis for a federal form of government. And the Butler Commission, yes, it did visualize a federal form of government, which was what was reflected in the Government of India Act 1935 ultimately. So the correct answer for this question is B2 only. So moving on to the next question. Which of the following is not a feature of a strong center? The territorial integrity of the state is with the parliament in India. Yes, so it is a feature of the strong center. So this is not the statement. Emergency provisions, when the emergency provisions are declared or invoked, there is a unitary thing without the amendment of the constitution. So this is definitely a feature of a strong center. Financial powers and responsibilities at the hands of the center. Yes, there are more powers because the union has 100 items in the union list and all the taxes and other financial aspects related to that is with the center as compared to the entries in the state list which are with the state. So to that extent, definitely financial powers and responsibilities at the hands of the center is more. That is why the Finance Commission is also set up once every 5 years. So that is also a feature of strong center. But state's role in establishing third tier of government is the correct answer because it is not a feature of strong center but more of democratic decentralization. So the correct answer is C. Moving on, consider the following statement. In India, the formation of new states has been only due to cultural and linguistic reasons. Sarkaria Commission has regulated the machinery of appointment of governor to maintain a healthy center-state relations. So we know the second statement is correct because Sarkaria Commission was about center-state relations and it did give recommendations about governor which we have discussed in detail. So the second statement is correct. So the option now becomes between B and C. These two are ruled out. Now what is the first statement? In India, the formation of new states has been only due to cultural and linguistic reasons. Not necessarily. It is one of the main reasons. Linguistic reasons was the 1956, but after that Maharashtra, Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana, those have been the reasons. But there are also other developmental related reasons. Uttarakhand from Uttar Pradesh is not necessarily completely cultural. It's definitely not linguistic. Chhattisgarh from Madhya Pradesh, it is not cultural and linguistic alone. Jharkhand from Bihar, it is not definitely, of course there was a tribal culture, but it is not that it is only based on cultural and linguistic reasons. There have been new states which have been formed for administrative convenience as well in India. So to that extent, the conversion of union territories into new states, be it Arunachal Pradesh or be it Mizoram, be it Goa, all these are also new states that have been formed in the Indian Union because they were earlier union territories. So because if it says only due to these factors, then that's not a right answer. So the correct answer is B, 2 only, right? So moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements. When there is an inconsistency between the laws made in Parliament and those made by the state legislature in concurrent list, the law made by Parliament would prevail. Yes. The residuary power of legislation rests with the Union. That is also right. This is Article 248. We know that the residuary power rests with the Union. This is Article 254. We know that a state law, if it is inconsistent with the parliamentary law will prevail. And I keep telling this to everyone repeatedly right from my first class till now. Don't overanalyze the UPSC question. Don't think of exceptions when the question is a direct question. If the question is meant to test you for exceptions, they will ask you specifically. So don't think, oh no, what if the state law is reserved for presidential assent and it receives such an assent, then it will prevail over the parliament law, so the first statement is wrong. No, that's an exceptional circumstance where it is done like that. Under normal circumstances, under Article 254, the Constitution says, in the concurrent list, if there are two laws, one made by Parliament, one made by the state, the parliamentary law will prevail. So that is the point which is being tested in this question. So the correct answer is both A, 1 and 2, right? So moving on, consider the following statements. The legislative, executive, judicial and financial powers are shared between union and states as per part 11 of the Constitution. The laws made by the parliament and states are extraterritorial in certain cases. So very straightforward question. Both the statements are wrong because judicial powers are never shared, because judiciary is an independent machinery in this country. So this word makes the statement wrong, and this word, only parliament can legislate with extraterritorial jurisdiction as per the Indian Constitution. So the states cannot have extraterritorial jurisdiction. So both the statements are wrong. So the correct answer is neither 1 nor 2. Right? Moving on. The parliament can make laws in the state list under which of the following circumstances? When Rajya Sabha passes resolution for the same, yes, Article 249 we have seen. When Rajya Sabha passes resolution by 2/3 of members present and voting, full stop. It doesn't require that additional condition which is usually associated with a special majority, which is also majority of the total membership of the house. That condition is not necessary for Article 249. Just 2/3 of members present and voting. If Rajya Sabha passes a resolution, then Parliament gets the power to legislate on state list. During national emergency, obviously, when there is a proclamation of national emergency under Article 352, then automatically the Parliament gets the power to legislate on all the matters under the state list to implement an international agreement. This is under Article 253. I mean, just pardon me if my article numbers are slightly wrong. Those are not important. I am just telling it for reference. So under Article 253, if there is an international agreement for which the Parliament has to give effect, it can legislate on a state list item. We have seen this. So the correct answer for this is D, 1, 2 and 3. Moving on, consider the following statements. The President can entrust to the state government certain functions of the Union government. Yes, he can. The President can delegate the functions of the Union to the states with the consent of the state. Yes, he can. In the legislative domain, any one state can request the centre to make laws in the state list. The third statement is wrong because there should be at least 2 or more states under Article 252 which has to request the Parliament to make a law on the state list. So the third statement is wrong. First and second statements are correct. So the correct answer is A, 1 and 2 only. Right? Moving on. Consider the following statement. imposition of governor's rule in a state is constitutionally mandated before proclamation of president's rule. So this question is being asked because there was a governor's rule, there is a governor's rule in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, right? So, which was recently imposed. So that is why this question is asked. So it has a current affairs relevance. So please have that in mind. When president's rule is enforced in a state, the High Court also comes under the direction of the Parliament. So the first statement is not correct. It is only for Jammu and Kashmir. Under the Jammu and Kashmir constitution, governor's rule is required for 6 months and then it moves to the president's rule. But for all other states, it's directly the president's rule. The first statement is wrong. When president's rule is enforced in a state, the High Court also comes under the direction of Parliament. No, our judiciary is completely independent. So nothing of proclamation of presidential proclamation under Article 356 or state emergency as we commonly call it. It does not affect the judiciary at all. So both the statements are wrong. So the correct answer is neither 1 nor 2, right? Moving on to the next question. Consider the following statement. The Constitution provides for formation of mechanism for adjudication of disputes between the states for river water sharing. Yes, we know Article 262 says that how river water sharing can be taken care of. The Constitution provides that neither the Supreme Court nor any other court exercise jurisdiction in respect of any river water dispute. No, the Constitution does not say that. Article 262 says the Parliament by law can exclude the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court or any other courts in a interstate river water dispute. So this statement is wrong. So the correct answer is A, 1 only, right? Consider the following statements. The Parliament may by law provide for an interstate council to settle disputes within states. Article 263, interstate council. Whenever the president feels that a council can be set up, he can set it up. So the first statement is obviously wrong. The interstate council is a constitutional body. Yes, Article 263, it is a constitutional body. It's a quasi-judicial body. No, the Finance Commission and other commissions are quasi-judicial body because they give recommendations to the government, which the government usually takes into account. They have the powers of the civil code for calling witnesses and all that. The interstate council is more a discussion forum. So it is definitely not a quasi-judicial body. So the correct answer is B, 2 only. Consider the following statement. An emergency provision is one of the unique features of Indian federalism. Yes, it definitely is. The emergency provisions have been adopted from the Government of India Act 1935. Yes, they were taken from Government of India Act 1935. The emergency provisions are unique in the sense that it can convert the federal structure into a fully unitary one without an amendment to the constitution. That is the beauty of the emergency provisions. When I say beauty of the emergency provisions, I am not supporting the emergency provisions or imposition of any emergency in the past or in the future. I am only saying that the emergency provisions give the center the power to make the entire structure unitary without amending the constitution or without disturbing any of the existing setups or any laws for that matter, right? So all the three statements are correct. The correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Consider the following statements. National emergency is always proclaimed for the whole territory of India. Not necessary, it can be proclaimed for parts also. National emergency cannot be proclaimed by the president unless there is a written recommendation from the cabinet. Yes, the 44th amendment made it compulsory because it was a phone call which resulted in proclamation of emergency in 1975. So in order to ensure that such things don't recur, the 44th amendment made it that a written recommendation from the cabinet. The word cabinet is used in the constitution only once in Article 352 and that is for this recommendation in writing to the president. The Supreme Court cannot intervene on the issues of national emergency. No. This was what was amended in the 42nd Amendment, but it was repealed by the 44th Amendment. The Supreme Court, of course, can see whether there is any malintention, whether there was any wrong intention in imposing the emergency. So it is only the second statement which is correct. So the correct answer is B, 2 only. Moving on. Which of the following were the changes to Article 352 by the 44th Amendment Act of 1978? Periodic approval by the Parliament for the continuation of emergency every 6 months. Yes, it was made mandatory. Special majority is required in both houses of Parliament for the approval of emergency. Yes, it was earlier a simple majority when the emergency was actually imposed. In order to make it stricter, the 44th Amendment Act in 1978, it was made as special majority. So the correct answer is C, both 1 and 2. Consider the following statements. When emergency is in operation, the fundamental rights except 20 and 21 are suspended. Yes. When national emergency is in operation, the state legislative assemblies are dissolved. That is not necessarily true. The parliament gets the power to legislate on any of the matter of the state list. The union government gets the power to give instructions to the states as to how to carry on their executive action. But it is not necessary that the legislative assemblies are dissolved. In 1975 to 77, many of the Congress legislative assemblies continued. Right? It was only the opposition legislative assemblies which are dissolved. So it is not a necessary condition. And during the imposition of emergency in 1975, all fundamental rights stand suspended. We have discussed in the class about Rajan's case, and what a heartbreaking case that was. We know of one. There were many such things. So that is why in 1978 the constitution was amended to ensure that your right in case of conviction under Article 20, your protection in case of conviction under Article 20, and protection of life and liberty under Article 21, they are not suspended even during a proclamation of emergency. So the first statement is correct, the second statement is wrong. So the correct answer is A, one only. Moving on. Consider the following statements. The proclamation of financial emergency shall expire in 2 months unless approved by Parliament. Yes, within 2 months it has to be approved. Once approved, the financial emergency remains indefinitely till revoked and does not require periodic approval. Yes, it is only periodic approval is required only for the 352 and 356. The approval of financial emergency can be obtained with a simple majority in both houses of Parliament. Yes, even for Article 356, it is simple majority. Article 360, financial emergency, it is simple majority. Only Article 352 for proclamation of national emergency was converted into a special majority. So the correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Right? So moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements with respect to proclamation of financial emergency. The President may issue directions to reduce the salaries and allowances of government employees, excluding the judges. No, we have seen even during independence of judiciary, if there is a financial emergency, then their salaries can be reduced. So the first statement is obviously wrong. All money bills and other bills are reserved for consideration of the President. That is a correct statement. So the correct answer is B, 2 only. Right? Moving on. Which of the following articles of the Indian Constitution provide that it shall be the duty of the Union to protect every state against external aggression and internal disturbance? The correct answer is Article 355. Now don't tell me that, sir, UPSC you said will not ask article numbers and all that. This is actually a 2003 question, right? And there has been some news about Article 355, article, when there was some turbulence in some of the states, whether the center can issue directions under Article 355 and all that. So because it has been also been in the current affairs, we asked you this question. So don't immediately panic and start by hearting all the article numbers. All the important article numbers you should be aware of. UPSC does not generally ask it unless it is very important, and this is important, and so you should be aware of it. Now moving on. Consider the following statement. When President's rule is in place, the state legislative assembly is dissolved. We just saw in the previous question, not a necessary condition. The suspension of fundamental rights is also a part of President's rule. No, there is no suspension of fundamental rights in Article 356 President's proclamation. A report of the failure of constitutional machinery in a state is mandatory to be submitted by the governor. That is also not the case, because Article 356 says when based on a report from the governor or otherwise the President is satisfied that the affairs of the state cannot be carried on in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution, he may proclaim that he is taking over the executive function. So all the three statements are wrong. So the correct answer is D, none of the above. Right? Consider the following statements regarding the difference between national emergency and President's rule. There is no maximum period for the operation of both the emergencies. No. National emergency can be infinite. Of course, approved every 6 months. But President's rule can be only for a period of 1 year, and it can be for a period of 3 years only if certain conditions are satisfied. There must be a national emergency in that place, and the election commission should certify that elections cannot be conducted. Only then it can be extended to even up to 3 years. So the first statement is wrong. Every resolution of the Parliament approving the resolution should be passed by special majority. No, it is only for national emergency that you need a special majority. For state emergency, you don't need a special majority. So the correct answer is neither 1 nor 2. Right? Consider the following statements with regard to issuance of proclamation under Article 356. Parliament may confer on the President the power to legislature to make laws. Yes. Parliament may also authorize the President to delegate the power to any other authority. Yes, both the statements are correct. So the correct answer is C, 1 and 2. Consider the following statements on effect of proclamation of emergency. Executive power of the Union shall extend to giving of directions to any state as to the manner in which the executive power is to be exercised. Yes, that is what is the unitary feature of emergency. So automatically the Union gets the power to issue instructions to the state. So the first statement is correct. Parliament gets power to make laws conferring powers and imposing duties on matters other than those enumerated in Union list. Yes, again, this is the executive domain, this is the legislature domain. So the correct answer is both 1 and 2. Consider the following statements with regard to proclamation of national emergency. Life of Lok Sabha may be extended beyond its normal term for 1 year at a time. Yes, for any length of time. President may extend the normal term of state legislative assembly by 1 year at a time. No, it is again the parliament which can extend the life of state legislative assemblies also. So the second statement is wrong. In both the cases, the extension cannot continue beyond a period of 6 months after the emergency ceases to operate. Yes, that's a correct statement. So the correct answer is C, 1 and 3 only. Moving on, consider the following statements. The security of tenure of the judges is an aspect of independence of judiciary. The contempt of court is not an aspect of independence of judiciary. Of course, security of tenure, that once appointed, you cannot be removed till 62 years for High Court, 65 years of Supreme Court, unless you are removed by the Parliament by a special majority. That is a very important aspect of independence. And contempt of court is also to ensure that courts give so many judgments and people don't follow it. What is the authority that the court has to enforce it? It is through contempt proceedings it can ensure that its orders are enforced. So that is also to ensure that the independence of judiciary is maintained. So the second statement is wrong, the first statement is correct. So the correct answer is A only. Sorry, 1 only, which is A. Consider the following statements. The appointment and removal of judges is a balancing power between the 3 organs of government. Yes, appointment is by the judiciary and the executive. Removal is only by the parliament. The removal of judges of Supreme Court can be only on the grounds of proved incapacity or misbehavior. Yes, we know that. Special majority in both the houses is a necessary condition to proceed with the removal of judges of Supreme Court. Yes, it requires special majority in both the houses in the same session. So the correct answer is 24. For the 24th question is D, 1, 2 and 3. Moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements. The special leave to appeal power of the Supreme Court is exclusive to it and is part of original jurisdiction. Of course, the special leave power is exclusive to the Supreme Court, but it is not part of original jurisdiction. It is part of its overall appellate jurisdiction. So the first statement is wrong. The writ jurisdiction of High Court is larger than the Supreme Court. Yes, because Supreme Court can be only for fundamental rights, whereas High Court is for fundamental rights or for any other matter. And the Supreme Court has the power to review any judgment pronounced by it. Yes, this is the review jurisdiction of the Supreme Court under Article 137. So the second and third statements are right. The first statement is wrong. So the correct answer is B, 2 and 3 only. Consider the following statements. The original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court has been very effective in interpreting the federal structures and functions in our democracy. Yes, because original jurisdiction is to the exclusion of all other courts when there is a dispute between center and state or between two states. So it is very useful and effective in implementing the federal features of our democracy. The appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is only with respect to constitutional cases. No. Even civil cases, there are appeals that is possible, subject to satisfaction of certain conditions. Criminal cases, wherever it is a fit case for appeal, an appeal can lie with the Supreme Court. So it is not only meant for constitutional cases or constitutional law. So the second statement is wrong. The first statement is correct. The correct answer is A, 1 only. Moving on. Public interest litigation is filed under Article 226 or under the writ jurisdiction of the writ petition to the Supreme Court. Yes. The judicial activism has evoked executive accountability. Yes, it is only to make the executive and the legislature more accountable that public interest litigation as a concept was introduced by the Supreme Court in the 1980s. The PIL can be filed by anyone who is not personally aggrieved. Yes, before that it was the locus standi. Guys, I am just rushing through these judiciary questions because we have already had it as part of a previous test discussion. So, it's just a refresher or a kind of a revision of those points. So I hope you read the explanation also given in the answer key, which will give some more information and inputs. So this is just more like a refresher course or a quick revision. Please read the explanations given in the answer key also and be thorough with all the points. Yes, before that, only if you are an affected party, what is called as locus standi, you can file a case. But PAL removed that requirement. Anybody who's not even an aggrieved party, but if there is a public interest involved, can go and file a PAL. So the correct answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. Consider the following pass. The government wanted to know if it can pass a law about the citizenship status of residents of POK, Pakistan Occupied Kashmir. Yes. It wants to know, it can request the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can give its opinion, which is advisory jurisdiction under Article 143. So this is correct. To resolve the Kaveri dispute, the Tamil Nadu government wants to approach the court. Yes, it can go, but is it appellate jurisdiction? No, it is the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So this is wrong. Court rejected the appeal by people against eviction from dam sites. Yes, this is part of appellate jurisdiction. Wonderful. So 1 and 3 are correct. So answer is C. No. What is the question asking for? Incorrect statement. So even if you know the concepts, if you have not read this properly, then you would have gone and marked answer as C and feel very happy about it. Whereas the question is about incorrect statement. So the correct answer is B, 2 only. So watch out for these incorrect, not and all. Careful. There may be only 1 or 2 questions in the UPSC, but you should have that habit of picking it up right away. If there are statements given, the first thing you do, as I have told you in the previous test, is to read what is the question asking for, so that you will mentally start eliminating according to what is being asked for, right? So moving on, which of the following are the powers of the Supreme Court? It appoints judges to the High Court? No, President does it. It is a court of record? Yes, it is. It settles dispute regarding election of President. President and Vice President election, the dispute can be only filed in the Supreme Court. So 2 and 3 are correct, 1 is wrong. So the correct answer is B for this question. So moving on to the final question. What is the difference between vote on account and interim budget? See, because there was an interim budget which was presented by the present ruling government, because there is going to be elections which is going to happen in April and May. So the key difference is vote on account is only about expenditure, whereas an interim budget is both about revenue and expenditure. And vote on account is usually done by a caretaker government, whereas interim budget is done by a regular government. So the key here is in this question is, do you understand the difference primarily between vote on account and interim budget, not about the caretaker government or the regular government? That is just to confuse you. That is why UPSC, and this is an actual UPSC question. Mind you, it is not something which we created. It is an actual UPSC previous year question. That is why, even though there is an element of ambiguity, we gave it, because the primary purpose is to know whether you understand what is vote on account and interim budget. So provision of vote on account is used by regular government, while interim budget is used by a caretaker government. This is the ulta. So that's a wrong statement. A vote on account only deals with expenditure, while an interim budget includes both expenditure and receipts. That's the right statement. So the correct answer for this question is B, 2 only. So I hope you found this discussion useful. As I told you, this is more as a revision for most of the points, because these points, of course, emergency and center-state relations, we have discussed this for the first time as part of test discussion, but we have discussed it enough in the class. So, and read the answer key and be thorough with all these areas. Keep preparing hard. All the best. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.